3 years passed after that night. Not loudly, not with dramatic turning points or sudden forgiveness, but slowly, the way time really moves when no one is pretending anymore. Life didn't collapse for anyone, and it didn't magically heal either. It simply continued, revealing things layer by layer, like a house whose cracks only become visible when the lights are turned on, and no one rushes to turn them back off. The settlement was finalized 6 weeks after the dinner, in a quiet conference room that smelled like old paper and burnt coffee, the kind of place where emotions aren't allowed to take up space, only facts. My parents sat across from me, closer to each other than they'd been in years, not out of love, but necessity. Claire sat beside them, arms folded, her face tight with something that looked like defensiveness but felt more like fear. When my father signed the last page, his hand trembled, just slightly, and in that moment I knew he finally understood what this really was. Not a misunderstanding, not a family decision, theft. And theft leaves marks, even when it's wrapped in good intentions and holiday dinners. After that day, there was no dramatic fallout, no shouting, no public arguments. What followed instead was silence, the kind that forces people to sit with themselves. My phone didn't ring much. No late-night messages asking if we could talk things through. No sudden apologies filled with tears. Just distance. And oddly enough, that distance felt safer than the closeness we used to perform. I went back to my routines. Morning walks through my neighborhood, coffee on the porch, emails at work, evenings in the garden. The roses bloomed again that spring, stubborn and bright, as if nothing had happened. I found comfort in their consistency. They didn't demand understanding. They just grew. The payments began exactly as the agreement stated, small at first, then steadier. I never checked obsessively. I didn't have to. That was the point of boundaries. Once they're set properly, they don't require constant defense. What changed wasn't the money coming in. It was the power dynamic. My parents stopped speaking about me as if I were lucky, as if my independence were some fluke of fate. Slowly, cautiously, they began telling people the truth. Elena worked for everything she has. It was a small sentence, but it landed heavier than any apology. For the first time, they weren't rewriting history to protect themselves. 6 months later, Claire asked if we could meet. Just the two of us. No parents, no children. We chose a small cafe halfway between our houses, neutral ground. She arrived early. She looked older than I remembered, not in years but in weight. The kind that settles into your shoulders when life doesn't go the way you thought it would. She stared into her coffee for a long time before speaking. I really thought it was their money, she said quietly. They told me Nana wanted me to have stability. I didn't ask questions. I believed her, and that was the hardest part, because belief didn't change the outcome. That's the problem, I said gently. She nodded, tears forming but not falling. I built my life on something that wasn't mine, she whispered, and I'm still paying for it. We sat there in silence, two sisters finally seeing the same truth from different sides. I told her I wasn't interested in punishing her. I just wasn't willing to carry her consequences anymore. For the first time in my life, she didn't argue. She didn't deflect. She just listened. We didn't hug. But when we left, it felt like the beginning of something honest, even if it was smaller than what people expect sisters to be. My parents took longer, much longer. Pride doesn't dissolve quickly, especially when it's been mistaken for authority for decades. My father came by one evening, alone, sitting stiffly on my porch, hands clasped together, like he was bracing for impact. He didn't make excuses. He didn't mention family or pressure or fear. He just said, "I told myself I was protecting everyone, but really, I was protecting my comfort." That sentence mattered more than the apology that followed. I didn't forgive him right away. Forgiveness isn't a switch. It's a process. Some days I still felt 16, sitting in Nana's kitchen, believing adults meant what they said. Other days I felt stronger than I ever imagined I could be. The foundation I started in Nana's name became real the following year. Real paperwork, real recipients, real stories. The first time I read a letter from a scholarship recipient, my hands shook. She wrote about leaving an unsafe home, about choosing her own future for the first time. "This money didn't just help me start over," she wrote. "It helped me believe I deserved a choice." I cried then, quietly, sitting alone at my kitchen table. Nana had been right. Money isn't just money, it's freedom or control, depending on who holds it. Claire and I stayed in cautious contact, short calls, occasional texts. I met her children eventually, slowly, on my terms. I loved them easily. Children don't inherit guilt the way adults do. But I never blurred the lines. Love doesn't require self-erasure. My parents sold their house and moved into a small condo. Life shrank for them, but it also simplified. My mother returned to part-time work. My father's health stabilized. The world didn't punish them, but it didn't shield them either. Consequences arrived quietly, exactly as they should. Holidays changed, smaller gatherings, fewer performances, less pretending. Some relatives drifted away, others stayed, quietly supportive. I learned something important in those years. The people who leave when the truth comes out were never standing with you to begin with. I stopped replaying old conversations in my head. I stopped imagining different outcomes. Peace didn't come from winning. It came from no longer needing to. Sometimes late in the evening, I still sit on my porch and think about Nana, about how she saw something in me before I ever saw it in myself. I bring fresh roses to her grave every spring. I tell her stories she'll never answer. And I thank her, every time, for trusting me with the hardest gift of all, the right to choose my own life. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Family should never require silence as proof of love. If you've ever been made to feel selfish for protecting what's yours, you're not alone. And you're not wrong. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do isn't forgiving. It's standing still, telling the truth, and walking forward without carrying someone else's weight.